Hello, I've been running, and the name Dale Ramirez popped into my head. Who is Dale Ramirez?
Hi, Denise. He's a young entrepreneur in Trinidad who is obsessed with building things that become community hubs. Really, I'm an entrepreneur for sure. I'm a serial entrepreneur, as they say, and that comes with lots of challenges. It's a curse as well as a blessing. Fundamentally, I like creating spaces in the hospitality arena that become cultural and community hubs. And I feel that is why I like doing it so much because after all the dust has settled, I see the space being used for what it was intended. Everything that I've done is always a place where art can thrive, community can thrive, ideas can thrive. And by doing those three things together, almost subconsciously, but through design, I benefit from it and the larger community benefits from it. So that's what I've been up to. That's who I am at 44. I ask myself, what do I really do? And that's what I am. I'm a builder of spaces that creates community and cohesion because it's important. Without community, or at least without each tribe having its own space where it can thrive, you won't have a community that is bubbling with activity. I fill that void in some regard.
Tell me about the kind of dust on you.
Oh, yeah, the dust that settles, that was because this kind of activity in the restaurant business or hospitality or creative sector, you have to ruffle feathers and break down walls, creating lots of dust to get things done because we are seen as lesser in Trinidad. The creative sector is on the side, although there's efforts to raise the bar or at least raise the importance of it, the intensity of work creating or generating funding to get things done. That's like a big thing. Like knocking on doors, when you're building something, there's always dust anyway. But the dust that settles is the challenges that I face in bringing together something. So, for instance, right now, after, by the way, the last conversation was 4 years ago when we talked during the pandemic. And I talked about what had just happened, which was the closure of the last business that I had. Fast forward 4 or 5 years, I'm happy to say one of those ventures is back up and running in a different form. It's now called District Cafe. The dust hasn't settled because the business I wanted to run, which I ran for 12 years back then, I'm unable to do that just because of the bureaucracy in Trinidad. The granting of a license to open a bottle of wine is a big deal in Port of Spain. And to create the environment that I want, it does require things like a bottle of wine because it's hospitality. The city corporation, town and country planning department, planning division, Ministry of Planning, they don't seem to understand those things. And they've never once created a pathway for this thing to become easier. In the 12 to 15 years I've been in this business, it's always been difficult to get a permit to open a restaurant or a space. The challenge still exists. And so I'm constantly trying to find ways to maneuver around it. And I guess one day we'll get there.
What exactly do you mean? You're saying you can't get a permit?
Right. So one of the buildings, this beautiful building in Woodbrook, and if everybody knows Woodbrook is almost like the capital within the capital. It's the extended capital of Port of Spain. It's now, Port of Spain has now made its way west, heading all the way into Woodbrook, which wasn't necessarily part of the main hub of the city. But Woodbrook has lots of historical buildings, and the building that I'm in is a fairly historical one. So it was built in 1949. It's an Art Deco building in a lovely location. It's on a nexus of several streets. Everybody knows the building, at least people in the area. Town and Country has deemed the building unsuitable because of setbacks. The building was built in 1949 before Town and Country planning had been established, and therefore the rules that they apply are being applied to a building that existed beforehand. They would rather me break the building down and build something that better suits their planning approval. The letter states we need to recess the boundaries of the building by 3 meters on all sides, which is 9 feet. Let's say 10 feet on all sides. Imagine having to pull your building in by 10 feet at every wall along the perimeter. It makes it impossible. That's why I can't get the approval. According to them, the building doesn't conform to town and country regulations. But my stance is that planning policy doesn't conform to real life scenarios where you have a building that's been there long before them. They would rather see the building vacant instead of being put to use in a particular way. I had decided on that building because it was in the middle of what I call the art and theatre district. There's Little Carib Theatre nearby, lots of art galleries nearby. And so the idea of having the space in that location was very strategic, only to be told by town and country planners that no, you can't do that there. And so for years, for decades, rather than revise their policy or understand the real needs of the community and why we think we're serving that community, they just stand or sit behind a desk and say, nope, you can't do it. That's a problem, a big problem for me, and I'm sure many other people. Everyone talks about it. The minute you knock on town and countries or the Ministry of Planning's door, you're in for a long journey and oftentimes without any kind of success.
And you're now operating another building.
Like I said, I'm a builder. So I couldn't resist but jumping in to an opportunity with Roses Hezekiah at Vinny Marger, a long-standing veteran restaurant, one of the oldest in the city. I jumped in to give Vinny Marger like a breath of fresh air and to inject new energy and ideas. Fast forward a couple of years, that restaurant has since closed and Toucan has taken its place. Toucan to the culinary diversity of Trinidad. What we serve at Toucan is Creole food, but in probably a not an out of the box way, just in a way that we see fitting. It doesn't necessarily need to look like your grandmother's plate, the best meal you've had at your grandmother's dinner table. But we're definitely paying respect to the culinary and liming traditions of Trinidad through this venture called Toucan. It's called Toucan because I like the bird. We have one species in Trinidad, the crested bill toucan, I think. You can find it in the forest, but they're very rare. You don't see them often. I thought it would be nice to use that emblem to represent the restaurant. So far, the response has been phenomenal. We've been open 6 months and grown from strength to strength every month. So I'm happy to do that. We're also very obsessed about improving hospitality, at least hospitality, the service industry in Trinidad. We're not very well known for being the most hospitable people, especially when it comes to service. And so I'm making every effort to change that through the operation here. We do that by selecting people that we can almost tell have a passion for helping others. So they must have a certain disposition first. But once we select those people, we train them up into becoming like professional hospitality representatives. So they represent the restaurant every day on the floor, at the counter, behind the bar, and hopefully outside in a particular way that makes us proud, but also that gives the customer the treatment that they didn't even realize they can get in Trinidad. Because one of the things we get most in terms of feedback is how they were so pleased with the service they got at the restaurant. A lot of times it's not just about how pretty or how tasty something is. You can literally sell anything once you treat people. That's not to say that we're selling garbage. We're selling refined Creole food, but we're also amplifying the experience of the customer with great, thoughtful hospitality. And that actually has to do with the name of the restaurant's group as well. So since then, I've started the 50 Toucans Hospitality Group. And that is a group, the holding company for Toucan Restaurants and Bar, and any of the other things that I'm involved in from a hospitality standpoint. Because I think fundamentally in my business, hospitality is number one. If you don't get that, your recipes don't matter. That's essential to what I'm doing at Toucan.
So you're a 44-year-old man and you've been very successful. What advice do you have for anybody who says, I want to be like Dale?
I'd say go for it, but also do the research and slowly get into it. Don't dive in head first. A lot of young people are eager to become CEO, right away. They want to get hired quickly, but it takes time and it takes experience. And so for somebody that wants to get into the hospitality business, I'd say power on. I'd be happy for you to join the community. But do your research, speak to people that you respect in the industry, and also those people that can advise you from a financial standpoint. That's very critical. Understanding the books is very important. Up to now, I still grapple with the numbers, but I'm still learning day to day about the balance sheet, cash flow, and all these things related to the business. It's like there's a pile of paper in front of me right now. I battle with those kinds of things because I'm a small operation. For a young person getting involved in this business, they have to understand all the layers involved in putting something forward. It is not just a pretty logo from Canva, which everyone can do these days, or a nice reel on Instagram. At the end of the day, it's the tangibility of everything minus social media and all of the glitz and glamour. It could be a very rewarding job for sure. It could be very profitable as well, but it takes a lot of time. I've been doing this since I was 28 years old. I'm 44. And I've been up and down. I've lost everything as during the pandemic, and I'm back up through strategic navigating, sharing ideas with the right people so that they give you the right counsel. Because sometimes you talk to one group of people that will just say, yeah, a bunch of yes men. That doesn't help you. Honestly, sometimes you need somebody to poke holes in what you offer so you think twice, go back to the drawing boards before your final draft. It takes several drafts, several attempts before the final. Don't be discouraged if it's difficult.
If you could give advice to the government, what advice would you give to ensure organizations like yours are successful?
A lot more conversations with stakeholders is critical. The government should reach out to business people throughout the nation and spend months gathering data. And from that data, in collaboration with those people and consultants, come up with a real roadmap for how things can be improved. From a bureaucratic point of view, they are in the way of economic growth when you have all of these borders and boundaries that often don't make sense. So I would say deregulating certain things would make sense, but not to the extent that there's a lawless society. We don't want that. But from the point of view of ensuring businesses have a pathway to success, like you have to set them up for success for them to be successful. If you have lots of small businesses that are successful, you have a successful economy. If that bottom line is successful, everything else will be, there'll be a trickle up effect versus a trickle down effect. It boils down to deregulating certain things. I'm not talking about grants. I mean, that government handout thing, I don't think it actually has worked. I've never gotten one. But I don't think those things are, they have their place for sure. There are people out there that would definitely benefit from a grant to start a business. But I don't think that we need to have 10,000 cottage industry folk in a society like ours. I don't know the numbers. They always pick the lowest hanging fruit in terms of like when a government is doing something, they will just throw some money out rather than at the greater picture and something that has a wide net kind of impact. They find the easiest things to do. I'm not convinced that any government in the past has done anything with real bones in it that will last a long time.
What would you like our listeners to remember?
I'd like all the listeners to remember to run. Denise, you are an inspiration to me. You have been, I met you. Running takes a lot of focus and discipline. We should apply that same discipline to our lives.
Thank you. Until
You're
next
welcome.
time, be safe.